Hello. Good evening or morning or night or afternoon or whenever you're watching it. For me, it's the evening. It's coming up to 5 o'clock. So some people call it late afternoon. I've already started this blog in a really boring way. I've got some interesting things hopefully to talk about. I felt the first blog had a lot more interesting stuff because, you know, it was the first one. And then the second one, I wanted to do one, but it was more just because I was in the venue. I didn't really have a huge amount to say, but I've got more to say this time. So rather than worrying about the time of day and the fact that I'm drinking a cup of tea, everyone, if you're holding a beverage, let's have a sip before we start. I've got a few things to talk about in this blog. One thing that I've been, I use the word suffering. I haven't been suffering. Suffering is a kind of a charged word in that respect. I certainly haven't been suffering with it, but one thing that's been causing me some problems recently, I say recently, even in the last year, I'd say it's probably over a year now actually, is I've been getting a huge amount of muscle tension. So I always had this thing for years where my jaw would get very tense and then it would click on one side and it would feel like the worst toothache in the world. And I remember on one of the tours, Andrews, my guitar tech, was having to bring me up painkillers on stage, and I was, double dosing on everything, ibuprofen and knocking down paracetamol and everything, just sometimes twice in a gig just to be able to get through, because it was like the worst toothache in the world, even though it was nothing to do with my teeth. It was purely just muscle around my jaw. I believe that's called TMJ or something like that, and I have to reach into your mouth and click it all out and do whatever. So I had that sort of come and go for many years, and that was always something that I absolutely dreaded because it's the worst pain I've ever experienced. And it's not really like that, but it's like I'm getting that similar kind of muscle tension that I get in my jaw, but it's happened all over me, and I could feel it in my hands, like they tense up even going to sleep at night, and my hands will be tensed in a fist and everything. My legs would hurt, my shoulders would hurt, my back would hurt, my neck would hurt. And it would be like I'd wake up in the morning and it was like I'd been beaten up. I felt bruised, like anywhere to touch just felt bruised. And I must say that's the second gig in Southend, because we had 2 nights in Southend, 2 gigs in a row. The second gig of that, it just kind of went a little bit. And I haven't, I've had a couple of good nights sleep now. And I don't feel it today. I don't feel the same level of tension. So that's quite nice. I mean, I've done some stretches and I've drunk a lot of water, but I haven't felt the need to take any painkillers or any bits and pieces, which has been quite nice. And I was starting to get a bit worried about that because I was getting these little spasms. I was getting it when I lay in bed at night and suddenly my leg would twitch. I mean, literally my leg would just jump without me trying to do anything, and then my other leg would go, and then sometimes they'd start doing rhythms and I'd be trying to sleep and my legs are just going crazy, which was, that worried me a little bit. And then that calmed down, and then I started having it in other places. My arm would twitch or whatever, and I've forgotten what gig it was. Maybe it was the first night in Southend or Cardiff. I think it was the first night in Southend. My eye started to do it. My eyelid started fluttering and really going crazy. I could feel it, and it actually hurt. It was the weirdest thing. It was like a cramp I was getting just above my eye, and it's really off-putting. I mean, I'm talking about it now and I'm starting to think that I'm feeling it and I'm not, but that's just psychosomatic. But that's been really weird, the first bits of gigs for this tour, and it's now starting to come off, and I don't really know what's causing it. I've been assuming that it's during the lockdown when it's happened, that it's just been kind of being at home and inactivity and maybe sleeping funny or whatever. I don't know, but it's starting to go. So I just want to keep an eye on that one. I thought I'd talk about that, and it's just put me off playing a little bit. And I like to get in this zen in a gig. So it's another thing that I'm going to talk about, because I've mentioned mistakes, and I don't want to bang on about mistakes. We all make mistakes, and I haven't made so many that, it's ruining a show or anything. But before the pandemic, I'd got so used to gigging, and gigging in front of reasonably big crowds. To some people it would be a nothing crowd, a few thousand. To some people it'd be the biggest crowd they'd ever played to. But I'd kind of got used to just going out and doing it, and it wasn't a big stress at all, you know. And my favourite gigs, I wouldn't necessarily say my favourite actually, but the ones that I played the best, if I ever listen back, which I try not to too much, but if I ever do listen back, the ones that I play the best are the ones where I get to the end of the gig and I can't remember them. And it's like when people say they drive to work and they don't remember the journey. They go, I don't remember any of driving to work because it was just like autopilot. And when I have those sort of autopilot gigs and I'm a little bit tired and I'll just get up there and sort of do it and open my eyes and go, oh wow, the gig happened, I don't remember it. They're always the best. They're always the ones, particularly with Floyd stuff, you know, they're the ones that I play the best. And I've been finding myself recently just becoming very aware in moments, like I'll be there just sort of half asleep playing away, you know, not really thinking about it. And then suddenly I'll kind of look, oh wow, I'm on stage and I've got pedals in front of me and there's people out there. And it's not like I'll become nervous, but I become conscious. It's like I move myself out of that little kind of headspace that I'm in, almost like a meditative headspace. And then suddenly it's like, oh my God, I've got to play, what comes next? And then I'm thinking about it, and that's when I'll make a mistake. And I've noticed that happens now. It's almost like I've got to get used to just, you know, being on stage and just forgetting there's anyone there and just, you know, shut my eyes and play guitar again. Because yeah, it's the awareness and the moment you pull yourself out of that. I mean, I hate that when I'm sitting at home, and yeah, that's why I don't ever have my phone on ring. It's always on silent, always on do not disturb, pretty much. And because there's nothing worse than when you're in that headspace and you're totally thinking about if I'm programming or I'm, you know, writing a song or doing it, and you're just totally in that zone. And nothing, you know, the rest of the world sort of doesn't exist to you, and then someone comes along and says something to you, or there's a loud noise or something takes you out of that world, and to me that's one of the worst feelings in the world, other than the jaw pain I was talking about earlier. And I've just been having those moments on stage, and that's always been my peace. When I'm on stage, it's always been the most peaceful, and I want to get back to that. So that's kind of what I'm working on, because I think that will reduce the mistakes. So that's something I wanted to talk about, and I've done that now. What else do I want to talk about? It's just Chris sent me something the other day, a comment from our fan forum, the official fan club, the sort of bit on Facebook, the group there. And then someone was talking about Chris doing his back in Cardiff, which obviously he did, and we had to postpone a gig back in 2019 because of it. A disc went out. I don't know the full details of medically what happened to him. You'd have to speak to him about that. But someone had written up, oh yeah, he slipped in the shower and all this. It's like, where did that come from? No one's ever said he slipped in the shower. He never slipped in the shower. But people just invent stories about you and then just, you know, fill in details. And I understand it's a very human thing to do, but I just find it funny when I read stories about us and we were there and we know what's happening. You can see how in all fields of life conspiracy theories start, because one person says something and it doesn't get challenged, and then that almost just becomes the truth because it gets repeated so often. And you know, fair enough, Chris slipping in the shower or not slipping in the shower, whatever, is nothing in the scheme of things. But you can see how if it was about something different that was more important or whatever, how misinformation can really spread. And I just noticed that, I mean, around that incident, but around other incidents as well, people kind of invent their own stories about, oh, they changed the set that night, they didn't do this song, what's that? And then people will come up with a reason. They'll go, well, I've had it on good authority that so-and-so has hurt their throat, and that's why they didn't do it tonight. It's like, that's just not true at all in any way. And I don't know where people get these things from. And I find it fascinating because, you know, Ozzy Floyd certainly isn't famous, and we're not famous in that respect, but we're playing to big enough crowds that there are people that discuss what we do in groups. And I just find it really funny watching the misinformation flow. And I think, you know, we're getting 1% of what bigger bands or politicians or actors or whatever else celebrities are getting. So we're getting the tiniest little sliver of it compared to what they're getting. So I kind of feel sorry for people that that have to be on the end of people making up stories about them. But I suppose that's just part of putting yourself out there and being on a public stage, however small that may be in our case with being a tribute band. But anyway, that was one thing I wanted to talk about. I've done that now. Pre-show rituals. Someone asked me about pre-show rituals. Say it again. Pre-show rituals. I wouldn't say I have any particularly. I just try not to think about the gig until it's about to happen. I tend to wear the clothes all day that I'm going to wear on stage, so I'm not getting ready for it. I like to take a cup of tea on stage with me, first and second half, because it's warm and it's good for your throat and whatever. I do like to have a fruit tea. I like forest fruit teas or strawberry tea or something like that, particularly strawberry tea or raspberry tea. Blackcurrant tea's all right, but strawberry or raspberry, and it's not got the milk in it, and I can have that on stage and it's hot and it helps. It's almost like an extra bit of steaming while you're on stage. So if you ever see me with a cup of tea on stage, sometimes it's normal tea and sometimes it's strawberry tea or something else. But Steve Eagles was drinking a peppermint tea today and suggested I should try that. So tonight before I go on, I might try a peppermint tea to take on with me. And if I don't like it, I don't like it. And I've also taken sometimes having a little bit of Vicks Vapor Rub and just kind of like spread that round liberally, so it's a bit of menthol that it helps clear any kind of congestion or whatever. But I wouldn't say I have any particular pre-show rituals or warm-ups or anything. I mean, this gig is not something that I'm not singing at my full pelt, until 3/4 of the way through the first half, and I've got other little bits of backing vocals before then that warm me up enough for that. And guitar-wise, it's hardly fast or widdly where I really need to significantly warm up for it. And we've done sound check a few hours early, so I've played a bit. So no, I don't really have any rituals. I suppose I like to just do relaxing things. Like sit there, do some programming. I might do some just recreational programming. Some neural network based stuff. I remember when I was writing my poker bot to automatically play poker, trying to get it artificial intelligence and stuff like that. So I do those kind of things, and then I might leave something like that running during the first half, and then at the interval I can check up and see what it does and change the code a little bit. So those kind of things relax me. I've got one that I want to work on at the moment where I'm trying to do like a voice match. I'm trying to use convolutional neural networks within an auto-encoder layout to basically change voice from one to the other. I know you can do it with an RNN and whatever, but I'm trying to do it with some sort of auto-encoder feed-forward or CNN sort of type thing, where I want to basically have two wave files that are matched timing-wise, but one's one person's voice, one's my voice, and then I want to train it so I can talk and it will sound like someone else. The autoencoder should change to something else. Now, I don't know whether an autoencoder is the right layout for something like that, but that's the kind of thing I like to work on before we go on stage. So I'm sort of doing that, and then during the gig, hopefully I'm playing in that Zen-like sort of meditative state entirely on autopilot and thinking about solving those problems, thinking about whatever I've been doing and trying to solve those things. So yeah, the maths really relaxes me. So I like to do something mathematical or physics. I'm in Guildford at the moment, and last time we did Guildford was a couple of years ago because of the pandemic. It was 2019, and my old maths teacher from school was here, as he usually comes to Guildford. He can't make it tonight, and even if he could, I wouldn't see him because we're in a COVID bubble. But I remember last time I had some really crazy thoughts while I was on stage about I can't even be bothered to go into it, but it was a new way of thinking about how maths is done in a real world setting, not in a kind of a virtual setting like on a paper and an equation. How maybe there's some constants Right, just for cutting purposes, because I tried to explain this idea that I had about when I was on stage last time I was here in Guildford, and I did it in a take, and then I was remembering it as I was going, and I think I completely screwed it up. So to cut a long story short, basically it's the idea that 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 in an actual practical setting in the real physical world is not the same as 2 + 2. So in kind of using the axioms of mathematics in a kind of theoretical mathematical world, 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 is the same as 2 + 2. But I was having this thought experiment in my head that what if in the real world 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 doesn't actually equal 2 + 2, because there's some sort of computational expense, you know, in actually adding the numbers together. So they're not going to work out to be the same. And a lot of this is my fascination with the sum of all natural numbers going to infinity equaling -1/12, or appearing to within physics. That seems to work, yet within, you know, pure maths that seems to be quite a ridiculous idea. And I'm trying to work out ways of how real world practical applications of mathematics turn out different to theoretical mathematics. And I came up with this idea that it was kind of built on primes. You have to reduce everything to, you know, the products of primes, and when you do that, you reduce each number, and each value will, and each sum you have to do will then have a certain amount of computational, I don't know, expense, I'd say, that actually changes the result of whatever you're doing, which might add a bit more on or take a bit more off. And I had it really mapped out, a whole concept to it, and I can't fully remember it now, and I did write it down, but that was what I was thinking about on stage in Guildford last time, and then I was lucky enough to discuss it with my maths teacher. So I'm going to try and chop this bit in, because that's still a bad explanation, but it's much better than the ramble that I was having during the whole full-length video, and I know that it will just bore people if I left it in as it was, because most people go, I don't know what he's talking about, and then anyone that does know what I'm talking about, it will be going, well, he doesn't know what he's talking about, and I openly admit I don't really know what I'm talking about. It was just a kind of a stream of consciousness idea about numbers and their applications in the real world that I was having in a gig 2 years ago. So, you know, don't take any of it as me trying to claim that I've got some new mathematical theory or anything. It's just what I like to think about when I'm on stage. Anyway, that's enough for this cut-in. Back to the main video. Right, I've done pre-show rituals. Guitars I'll leave for another one. Slanted stages, oh yeah, that's another thing. In Southend it's got the worst slant on all the stages. So although we did 2 nights there, which is really nice, you know, 2 nights in the same venue, you get used to the sounds. The second night was really rocking. Just ankles hurting and back hurting and stuff from that, because you're kind of, as a bloke, I'm not used to wearing high heels. I've never worn high heels, so I'd imagine it's because your feet are at a slight angle and then you're trying to stand up. It would be a bit like wearing high heels. Right, I'm going to edit this down. I'll probably cut out a load of that boring math stuff. I think that will do for a blog for today. We are in Guildford, as I said. Tomorrow we're in Brighton. I will do some bits with bits in Brighton, because that's another place that I did on the Deep Purple tour. So it means a lot being there. And my mum actually came along to that show in Brighton when I was on the Deep Purple tour, and I wasn't expecting her to, and that was a really nice surprise to have her there. I was 25 at the time. I just turned 25 actually. So I'll talk more about that tomorrow in Brighton. I'll film something for it, and I also want to, because I won't have a lot to say in Brighton, I'll probably just do a little bit there about Brighton, and then try and grab Mike Kidson in either Brighton or Bournemouth, and I want to have a chat with him, because there's an album he introduced me to years ago, which is one of my favourite albums of all time, and I listen to that, I wouldn't say daily, but definitely weekly. I have it on at home, I have it on in the car, and it's a wonderful album. So he introduced it to me, and he knows a lot more about it than I do. I just listen to it. So I will be bringing him on to have a chat about that. So please subscribe, please like, and all that stuff. you know what to do. I'm not selling you any VPNs. I'm not trying to, you know, do anything like that. So the least you could do is like and subscribe, you know. No sponsorships, nothing like that. So, yeah, until next time, goodbye.